All right, let's talk about the oil and gas industry. Now, as an aspiring consultant, you know you need to get your head around the major industries. But what's really going to make you stand out in an interview is applying that knowledge to what's happening in the world right now. So in this explainer, we're going to give you that core framework for ONG, and then we're going to apply it to the crisis unfolding in the Strait of Hormuz. You'll see exactly how these geopolitical shocks can send waves through the entire global economy.
To really get this industry, you first have to appreciate its unbelievable scale. Just the drilling sector alone, not the whole shebang, just the drilling, makes up almost 4% of the entire global economy. It's truly one of the pillars of our modern world, powering everything from our cars to our factories.
And that brings us to the big question. This system is absolutely massive, but it's also fragile. It relies on a few critical arteries to keep everything flowing. So what happens when one of them gets blocked? And let me tell you, this isn't some hypothetical question. It's exactly what we're seeing play out as we speak.
Okay, so to make sense of all this, you need a framework. And for oil and gas, your most powerful tool is the value chain. It's a really simple model that helps you break this incredibly complex industry down into 3 clear stages. For any kind of business analysis, this is absolutely essential.
It all starts with upstream. This is all about getting the raw stuff out of the ground. We're talking exploration, drilling the wells, and producing that crude oil and natural gas. Next up is midstream. Think of this as the logistics backbone. This part of the chain is all about moving the resources, often thousands of miles, through a huge network of pipelines, tankers, and trains. And finally, we get to downstream. This is where the crude oil gets turned into the products we actually use every day and then sold to you and me.
So what exactly comes out of that downstream process? Well, you've got the obvious ones, right? Gasoline and diesel that power global transportation, which is by far the industry's biggest customer. But the list just keeps going. We get asphalt for our roads and petrochemicals, which become the building blocks for plastics, fertilizers, and just countless other goods.
Okay, so now that we've got our framework down, let's put it to work with our real-world case study. We are zooming in on one single high-stakes location where that entire value chain is under threat, the Strait of Hormuz.
The Strait of Hormuz is what's known as a geopolitical choke point, and really it's exactly what it sounds like, a bottleneck. It's a narrow channel of water, but because of where it is, it's absolutely vital for global trade. If you can control or even just disrupt a choke point like this, you suddenly have immense power over the world economy.
So just how critical are we talking here? Well, get a load of this number. 20 million barrels of petroleum pass through that strait every single day. That is almost a fifth of what the entire planet consumes daily, all flowing through one little waterway.
And this stat really drives the point home. Nearly a third, 30% of all the oil and natural gas that's moved by ship has to pass through Hormuz. It is, and this is no exaggeration, one of the most important arteries in the world's energy supply.
And right now, that artery is being squeezed shut. Recent military strikes and retaliations have caused what you could call a de facto closure. Now, it's not officially closed, but the risks are so incredibly high that insurance premiums have gone through the roof. And that's forced commercial shipping to a near standstill. We're talking hundreds of tankers just anchored outside the strait, waiting. So, you're the consultant. Your client is freaking out. How do you advise them? Well, you'd use a tool called scenario analysis to map out the potential outcomes. The goal isn't to predict the future with a crystal ball. It's about getting prepared for different, plausible futures based on what's driving the crisis.
Check this out. This table shows a clear link between one key variable, how long this lasts, and the economic damage. In a baseline scenario, if this whole thing is sorted out in less than a month, oil peaks around $85, and the hit to global GDP is, well, it's not great, but it's manageable. But what if it drags on for 3 months or more? That's the prolonged scenario. Now you're looking at $100 oil and the damage doubles. And then you have the tail risk. This is the low-probability, high-impact event that keeps leaders up at night. A full-blown regional war could send oil soaring past $130 a barrel and literally shave a full percentage point off global GDP.
And this quote from the source material really just nails it, doesn't it? Every client, every government, every market is just watching the clock, how long this lasts, and how far it spreads. That is what will decide how bad the economic fallout gets.
But a shock this big doesn't hit everyone equally. Oh no, it sends ripples across the whole economy, and it creates very clear winners and losers. As a consultant, figuring out who wins and who loses is the key to giving sharp, strategic advice.
It's actually pretty straightforward. This kind of disruption is a huge opportunity for some and a total crisis for others. The winners are pretty obvious. Upstream producers outside the Gulf who can now sell their oil for way more. Shipping companies that are charging massive risk premiums. And yeah, the defense sector. The losers are just as clear. Any industry that gets hammered by high fuel costs, like airlines and manufacturers. And at the end of the day, when people have to spend more on energy, they spend less on other things, and that hits retail and other consumer businesses hard.
Okay, let's wrap this all up. If you were walking into a case interview tomorrow, what's the essential briefing you need to have ready to go? What are the absolute key takeaways from this whole analysis?
First, always remember the scale. This is a massive, interconnected global machine. Second, your core framework for breaking it down is always the value chain: upstream, midstream, downstream. Third, remember that geopolitical choke points like the Strait of Hormuz are the system's biggest weak spots. Fourth, any big disruption creates predictable patterns of winners and losers. And finally, and this is the most important part, being able to explain all of this shows that you have the kind of commercial awareness that top consulting firms are desperately looking for.
So we'll leave you with this thought. The framework we've just gone through helps you analyze what's happening today in the Strait of Hormuz. But the real test, the real challenge for a consultant is to apply it to what's coming next. What's the next choke point, the next conflict, the next trend on the horizon? That's the question your future clients are going to pay you the big bucks to answer.